Hi everyone, this is Victor, your host at Study Lab, and today we're continuing our series on Bash scripting basics. And we're going to just discuss two topics for today, and that is declarations and command line substitution. So I've created two simple scripts here just to save some video time. So let's take a look at my first script here and discuss some basic declarations. So we previously discussed variables and we just did simple assignments like var name equals and a value here, and then you would access that variable. For instance, if you want to echo it, you would access it through $sign and then the variable name. But in some cases, you might want to, first of all, restrict the type of your variable. So you want to make sure that it's always going to hold integer values. Because in this case, what you can do is you can change it to a string, and that also works fine. So it allows for multiple types. So a declaration allows you to restrict the variable to a certain type, like an integer or an array. And also it allows you to separate the declaration from the definition. And what I mean by that is you can first declare that your variable exists, so var name exists, and then later on you can define it or assign a value to it. So you can do the assignment later in your program or script. So you can see here that I have the basic syntax for declaring a variable in Bash, and you can use two separate commands to do this, either declare or typeset. And apparently typeset is a little more universal. It works in Corn shell as well. I think declare only works in Bash, but if you don't care about that and you're focusing on Bash anyway, it doesn't really matter. So you can use either one of these. And here we have some examples. First of all, for declaring an integer. So typeset -i for integer, then the variable name, which in this case is int, and then optionally you can also assign it a value directly. And I mean optionally because you can remove this and you can do the assignment later, so you can assign it here or later on in your script. So that's what I mean by separating the declaration from the definition. So as I was saying, this works both with typeset and with declare -i. So this will just declare a variable called int and assign it the value 33. And then we're going to echo the contents of that variable. So that's how to declare an integer. Next, how to declare a constant. So a constant is a storage location, basically, that once defined, it cannot be changed. So you can only define it once. If you try to change it a second time, that will throw an error. So typeset or declare -r for read only, then the variable name, and be careful here in the case of constants, always define them at the same time that you're declaring them, because if you're simply declaring this constant, then it will not allow you to define it, because once it's created, basically you can't touch it. You can only read it, but you can't write anything to it. So let's restore this. So typeset -r, read only equals, and the value. Read only is just the name of my variable. Obviously you can use any variable name you'd like. And then I'm just echoing the value of this constant, and then I'm trying to change the constant here. Read only equals changed, and I'm trying to echo the contents again to see what happens. So this is my first script. I'm just gonna exit it and execute the declarations 1sh. So remember that we have had our type set -i int equals 34, and then we echo the contents, and the contents is 34. Then we define a constant with the -r option and assign the value const to it, and then we're gonna try and change that constant, and bash throws us an error saying read-only is a read-only variable. And then we're echoing out the value of our constant again, just to demonstrate that its value hasn't changed, so it's still const here. If we go back to our script, this is the initial value, const, and you can see that I've tried to change it to changed, but that doesn't work. So those are the most basic declarations, the -i for integers and -r for constants. And now obviously constants can hold any value. It can be either a string or an integer. If you just want to declare a string variable, you don't need to use any arguments to the declare command at all. So you just do declare my string, so the name of your variable, and if you want you can assign it a value. Okay, and then echo my string shows you the value of that variable you just declared. Now let's look at our second script. 2. Okay. So now we're talking about arrays, and we haven't discussed that before. These are a little different than lists. So let's first just define a simple array using our normal variable assignment syntax. So my array equals, and this is the syntax. So you open up a parenthesis here, and then you input the index between brackets and assign it a value. So let's say 5. Then space, another index, and assign it a value like, and this can be mixed. So string, string. Let's see if I can type this, and another number, let's say. Hit enter, and now if we echo my array, with the dollar symbol, it just echoes out the first element here, which is 5. But if I want to echo a specific index, I can echo out my array brackets 1. And I'm using the brace expansion here. Please check the video on brace expansions if you don't know how this works. But basically, because I'm having different characters in here, like the brackets, I don't want to confuse bash, right? So if I echo this, it will echo the value at index 1 in my array, which is string. But if I don't use the braces, what happens is it echoes out my array, which is 5, the first element, and then it simply echoes out this string. So it doesn't interpret the whole thing. That's why I need to include the braces in there. Okay, so that's an array. Now let's get back to our script. And we have two ways of declaring arrays using the declare or typeset command. One of them is to declare a numerically indexed array, which we did in the command line before. So numerically indexed means that the indexes, this and this, are numbers. So the way to do that is typeset or declare -a for array, then your variable name, and if you want to define it at the same time, equals, and your array definition here. Same as we did in the command line, basically. So I'm doing that with the test array here, and then I'm echoing out first the value of my variable without specifying a specific index. Then I'm outputting the first index, or index 0, and then index 2. Index 0 is an integer and index 2 is a string here. Next, I'm declaring an associative array. And an associative array basically uses strings for its indexes. So instead of 0, 1, 2, here we have age and height. It's sort of like a dictionary. So for each dictionary entry, you basically have a value or explanation, right? And the way you access that is by using your variable name, and between the brackets you include the string index. So it's the same as for numerically indexed arrays, just that the indexes are strings. So let's see what happens when we execute our second script. Okay. So remember, this was the first element, an integer in our array. Same here, the first element using bracket 0 and using bracket 2 to access the second, actually the third element, since we are numbering starting with 0. We're counting from 0. And then this is the associative array here. So assoc, which is the name of our associative array, and brackets age is 20 and height is 185. Okay, so typeset or declare -a for arrays, and typeset -A or declare -A for associative arrays. Now there is also another parameter you can pass on to typeset or declare, which is -x, and what -x does is it makes this variable available to external scripts. So if you have multiple scripts, for instance, let's say you have two scripts, and your first script declares some variable that you want the second script to gain access to, then you can just declare it using the -x option, and that will basically export your variable, and it will make it accessible globally, right, in your shell session. So it can be read or written to by your other scripts. So that can be useful sometimes. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for declarations. It's pretty easy, and also don't forget, never forget, regardless of the command we're discussing, check out the man page. So man space declare or man space typeset, and read the manual page. Yeah, so here it's just a general man page for general commands. You can search by typing / and then what you want to search for. So if we search for declare and hit N key to search for the next hit, it takes us here where it describes the syntax for declare and typeset. So basically typeset is a synonym for the declare command. And here it will describe all the parameters, and there's more parameters than the ones we discussed, but since this is a bash scripting basics series, I'm only discussing the basics for now. And you can also try declare -- help, and it will show you a more concise help file. And last but not least, let's briefly discuss command line substitutions. And this is really basic, and we've actually been using it in some of our previous videos. But just to clarify, command substitution is basically executing a command in a subshell, in a parallel shell, basically, in the background, and then using the results of that command. So you can either save those results into a variable and do whatever you want with them, or if you don't need the results, you don't need to deal with them at all. You can just execute the command and that's it. And that can help in some cases because it won't output anything to your command line. So since it runs in a separate shell, you don't see any output. So if you want to execute commands within your script and don't want the user to see any output, then you'd use command line substitution. And the syntax for command line substitution is where there's actually two syntaxes. The first one is $ parentheses, and here you can type your commands. So for instance, ls. If I hit enter, let's see, command not found. Okay, let's try the other. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm an idiot as always. So the reason it's saying command not found here is since I'm executing this, it returns the result of the ls command, and ls command returns this, and it tries to execute all of this as a command, and that that's obviously not working. So you need to assign this to a variable name. So for instance, myLS equals and dollar parentheses ls. Hit enter, and now you don't have any output whatsoever, but you can echo your variable, which is myLS, and it holds the results of the ls command. So basically it runs ls in a separate shell and returns the results. There's an older syntax for this. Let's do mydirs equals, and this is the backtick syntax. So backtick and your command, and then another backtick here. And this works exactly the same as the dollar parentheses syntax. I personally like to use the parentheses syntax more, but whatever you want to use. Now if I echo mydirs, it's just echoing out tilde, which is the result of the dirs command. So I hope this was helpful and you found this useful. Don't forget to subscribe below and hit the bell to keep in touch. And until next time, have fun and keep learning.